Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Road to Percona Live. I'm Matt Yankovic, the head of open source strategy here at Percona, or the Haas for short. And today I'm joined with Bruce Momjian from EDB. Bruce, how you doing today?
Hey, great to be with you today.
Excellent. So Bruce has a couple of talks at Percona Live. He actually has a tutorial and two talks. And so wanted to just get his take on, why people should be interested in attending the talk, what he's going to be talking about, what they're going to learn. And I figured we'd start with the first one, which is all about mastering PostgreSQL administration. Bruce, is this for DBAs who are already Postgres admins? Is it for new DBAs coming in? Is it for developers? Maybe tell us a little bit about that tutorial.
Yeah, it's only 3 or 4 hours, so we can't cover obviously everything. But um, the goal for that talk is really to give people a framework because as a DBA, particularly if you're a new database DBA, there's like these things you have to do. There's configuration, there's monitoring, there's backup, there's sort of data durability and failover and recovery and stuff that it's kind of hard to put it all together. So, what this talk tries to do is kind of give you sort of a primer on the Postgres architecture and how it's laid out and the basic pieces and how the different ways of installing it, and then talking about configuration. We go through all the configuration parameters and give you kind of a framework of which things you should be looking at, and then we talk about maintenance and the types of things that you need to do to maintain it. Fortunately, Postgres doesn't require a lot of maintenance, but you should know what's there and what's being done automatically. And then finally, we talk about monitoring, which to me is we would think would be an easy thing, but I don't know. I've been around, as you have for a long time, and I started to realize there's different aspects of that. Like alerting is different than sort of trending or digging down at the moment of problem versus looking at longer term, sort of errors or issues that you're having with your thing. So sometimes you're looking for immediate information, just what's happening right now, and then other times you're looking for more of an aggregate trending type of case. How is my storage doing? What's my typical queue length? What's my memory, free memory over time average? And then you make smaller changes there, and it can be overwhelming sometimes
Oh, yeah.
when you go into it, particularly because in Postgres there's different tools that do different things. So you're like, well, I need to look at what's happening right now. Okay, you need one tool. Okay, I need to historically go back and see how long this query is taken. Okay, now you need an analysis tool, an aggregation tool. That's a different thing. So that's what I'm going to try and get across is that concept of what are the specific steps for Postgres? Where do you kind of look to get started, and sort of how do you kind of bring it together?
Okay, great. And I think that's a good resource for those who either need a refresher or who are starting out. Maybe they know a little bit about Postgres. They want to get a bit deeper, understand those things. I know I get asked all the time, what should I be monitoring? What should I be looking at? And it is a complicated answer, definitely, because there are those nuances. Now, your second talk is all about non-relational Postgres. So maybe explain that to me, because Postgres is a relational database. So how do we do non-relational Postgres?
Yeah, that's a real can of worms. It took me a lot of time to really understand there was a talk there, right? Because I've been with Postgres for I guess 26 years, and when I started out, we were always compared to Ingress or Informix or Microsoft Desk or Sybase at that time, or Oracle, and they were looking to do traditional workloads and all the standard relational stuff. But what's kind of unusual about Postgres is that 10 years before I started, it had been designed as this extendable database. We call it object relational database. So it had this extendability component. And when I started, it was actually cumbersome to have an extendability component in something you just wanted to be a relational database, right? Um, but what was really interesting is as I started to understand how the database industry was changing, I even have like a data horizons talk on my website about how data requirements are now much different than they were obviously in the 2000s or in the 90s. What I started to realize is that there's a lot of need now for non-relational storage, whether it's JSON, GIS, full text search, um, We have range types which are really powerful. We have arrays. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that what didn't exist back there. It wasn't something that people cared about, but now they do. And fortunately, Postgres, because it had been designed again in the 80s to be extendable, actually has all this capability. So thanks to that design and thanks to a lot of our flexible indexing that we have, we're able to really take on pure non-relational databases at their own game. A Mongo or Cassandra, or something that's more of a simplistic or more of a single use, and actually provide almost, in some ways, a much better developer and user experience than those more dedicated engines, which seems like it would make sense. So what that talk effectively is taking a lot of a lot of the different examples and showing the pattern of how you query non-relational data in a relational system, how you index it properly, and a lot of the value of having both the relational and non-relational in the same engine.
Yeah, and I have seen a ton of growth in the JSON usage within Postgres. It's something that developers clamor for, and they often don't do it right. They don't do it correctly. They don't use it correctly, and so that causes all kinds of problems. And I know that there's some enhancements also coming in Postgres 15 to comply to some of the more common standards with JSON access. So that's going to be good as well. So it's an evolutionary process, but I already see people making heavy use of it today.
And it probably looks like, probably to a lot of people, it looks like there's Postgres and then there's Postgres with JSON, and there's this they see that the relational engine and there's this JSON thing. But in fact, what you see in that talk is that that JSON thing is part of a much larger offering that really brings in a whole new capability, a whole host of new capabilities to the database that you wouldn't think would even be in a database like
Right.
GIS or something like that.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, that should be a great talk for people who are interested in that. It kind of crosses the berm between the back end folks and the front end folks.
Oh
So
yeah.
I would definitely encourage folks to check that out.
If people are using Postgres as just a relational engine, they may be missing a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And so speaking of that, kind of like rethinking Postgres and some of the the use cases and how it's evolved over the years. You're gonna be giving a quick keynote on Wednesday, which is during our community keynotes, where we're trying to invite people from the various database communities we support to talk about some of the things happening, whether it's new trends, features, or challenges. And you're going to be talking specifically on Postgres challenges and where you see those challenges evolving over the next couple of years. What, maybe just give us a quick, soundbite there on like what are some of those challenges that you're seeing, and you're like, ooh, this is something we need to really resolve.
Yeah, that talk's really part of, I would say, a triptych of Postgres talks. I mean, the first one is Will Postgres Live Forever, which is kind of an interesting open source life cycles talk, which I think is really cool. Then the second one is related to the democratization of databases, which talks about how democracy is so important in even in how the software is developed and enhanced. But this is sort of the darker side, right? The darker side meaning what things could go wrong, right? What as a leader, obviously, your job is to see the horizon, look for threats, and try and guard against them. So, there's threats in terms of the market. Could the market move away from relational completely, right? Could embedded become a major thing that we can't play in? Could the tool chains move away from C, for example? Could we have competitive changes where other relational systems just kind of surpass us? And then there's also the more non-technical, which are in some ways the more risky ones. You know, uh, Leadership health, making sure that the trademarks are properly managed. Protecting against patents. Looking for just things that can go wrong that are not technical, but in some ways can be even more harmful to the project. So, the good news is we actually are in pretty good shape in all of those, but that doesn't mean we stop looking, right? We just it means we're still looking a little farther down the road and trying to understand, where those risks come. But as project leaders, that's one of the major things we should be looking at.
Yeah. Well, we hope that you'll join Bruce and I at Percona Live, May 16th through 18th. Bruce has a talk every day, so I guarantee he'll be there all 3 days. We hope you'll join us. There's going to be over 100 different sessions, from Postgres leaders to MySQL gurus to Mongo gurus. We've got a little bit of everything for everyone. We're going to be touching on all kinds of different subjects, whether it's deep internals, Kubernetes, developer focused topics. We got a little bit of everything for everyone, and we hope you'll join us there. Bruce, thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with us today.
My pleasure. Great to see you there.